Construction Management Foundation, and I'll be facilitating this panel discussion and student panel discussion from various students in various universities in Gauteng primarily. And really, what we'll be doing today is to just discuss some of the experiences and issues that some of the students are facing at the moment in the higher education system, and as well, hopefully get some insight from the panel, from the audience on what they think and what are some of the how some of the issues can be sort of addressed. So before I go further, I'll just give some context on some of the issues that we are going to deal with, and much of the issues actually were discussed last week at the launch of the ACPM Young Professionals. So here we are just going to really unpack them and share insights on and in fact hear perspectives of what the students have to say on these issues. So the first issue that we are going to look at is the issue of practical training and practical experience in higher education, and how it can be effectively integrated into teaching and learning, and as well find out whether is the industry supporting practical experience, and just see what are some of the issues there, and as well as look at what can be done to address that particular area. The second issue we're going to look at is issues around teaching and learning. This is really how teaching and learning sort of occur. So we're going to identify some issues that are maybe facing some of the students in these universities, and as well as see how those can be addressed. And the third is around funding. A lot of students still complain, particularly construction management students, they still complain around issues of bursaries and funding. They complain that there's inadequate provision in the industry, and it hinders their ability to complete their studies. So we're going to look at that as well. And the fourth one is around graduate employability, and also graduate training as well, which essentially talks about how employable are graduates produced in construction management programs, and also look at how the transition sort of happens from university to the workplace, including also some of the issues around the candidature, these candidacy programs, and as well the internship, which are quite a problem actually on the public sector side, and also highlight maybe what are some of the issues, and also include some comments from the audience on their own experiences in terms of candidacy programs and employment in the public sector, and all those sort of issues. Then another one which deals with career guidance. This largely deals with how the industry approaches career guidance, particularly from the lower, I mean in high school, and also at first year, second year, so as to ensure that students are always aware of the opportunities that are available in the sector and where possibly can they go. So we're going to look at that, whether it's adequate or if there's anything else that needs to be done to ensure that goes well. And the last one is issues around student organizations, is to look at how are students in construction management organizing themselves, and also leadership development, particularly student leadership development. So we're going to look at those, maybe see what role are student organizations playing in higher education, and be able to see potentially some of the impact that some student organizations are making, and whether those are enough, or whether the industry has to provide more support to ensure the sustainability of those student organizations. And more importantly, I think, is just to really understand the frustrations and some of the issues students are facing right now in construction management programs, and to share ideas on possibly what can be done to enhance the quality of construction management degrees and on the qualifications, if I might say, so as to improve the industry, and also be able to provide a proper interface, or perhaps, if I may say, close the gap that we always discuss between what is taught in universities, and also the practice that's required on site. And also be able to be honest about it, because there's a lot of businesses that would say students are not ready, and students need to, they make a lot of expectation out of students, and yet at the same time, they don't have a developmental approach in terms of how they absorb the students within their companies. And some companies don't take really a lot of interest in developing graduates. And in as much as there might be some programs there and there, but not all of them are actually working. A lot of students, particularly graduates, are very frustrated with some of the employers in the sector and their inability to understand the importance of professional development. So before going forward, what I'll do is that I'll ask each of our panelists to please introduce themselves, give us a brief background on where they're coming from, and yeah. So I'll start with Yusuf from Anasa.
Good day to everybody. My name is Kaka Mawa from the University of Johannesburg. I'm doing my postgrad in construction management. Also, my involvement with the university is that I'm one of the founders for the Building Science Forum, and also one of the founders for Direct Mentors Network. Equally, one of the founders for AlphaCon. It's a youth-owned consultancy and advocacy company that I started with my peers.
Morning, everyone. I'm studying at I'm Ruben Wilman, and I'm studying at the University of Pretoria. But today I'm here representing the ACPM Young Professionals Steering Committee that was set up last week in discussion with most of the topics that we're going to discuss today.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Devet Linder. I'm currently a fourth-year student in construction management, doing my honours at TUX. I've grown up in the construction industry and have had quite a love for it since a young age, and that's quite where I've got my exposure from. Thank you very much.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Murendeni Lipadzi. I'm a postgrad leadership student at the University of Johannesburg. On Google Scholar, Murendeni Lipadzi, ResearchGate, Murendeni Lipadzi. I also have a grade 3 contractor within the CIDB General Building and Civil. I advocate for leadership development within the construction industry and critical skills for the fourth industrial revolution. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Without wasting more time, we'll then move to the first point, which deals with issues around practical training and practical experience opportunities. So as obviously there's been a lot of discussions, I think, in higher education in general about the importance and relevance of practical experience. So just want to find out your thoughts as a panel on the adequacy of practical experience and its provision, on whether it's working, or what are some of the issues that you guys are perhaps facing as far as practical experience is concerned?
Okay, I think I'll speak from a student perspective. There's a great lack in mentors that actually are able to take a whole lot of students under their wing in the industry currently. And then it's actually causing a great panic amongst the students themselves, because remember, mentorship actually determines what type of professional you become once you are in the industry. It also determines whether or not you will love or hate what it is that you actually do. And then another thing is that universities currently, we need to really analyze whether or not they are still teaching us the necessary skills. I mean, like Murendeni mentioned, we're in the fourth industrial revolution. It's actually happening now. Chances are a child in grade 1 today is going to have a career that does not exist. So equally, that also means our careers could be non-existent by then. They could have become obsolete. So we need to actually analyze whether or not we're still getting the right skills. Equally, another issue is jobs. There literally are no jobs for most graduates. I mean, there's high levels of graduates that are graduating all the time, but how many actually get employed? Actually, how many are employable? That's another issue that needs to be looked at.
Regarding the practical experience, I know from the university's perspective, we've got a few classes that sometimes just force you to go out into the workplace to try and understand what is expected from you once you go into the final industry. One subject is building sciences, where you're expected to do assignments. You have to physically go out to the site and understand what's going to happen and what is happening on the site. But I just feel that this is not being done properly because you have to go to a site and you have to prove that you've been there for once every second or so week. But I mean, you're not really learning anything. You're going there, you're applying theory because you're taking pictures of things that you were taught in the university. But I mean, you're not understanding why it is like it is. It's just basically monkey see, monkey do. It's not about you actually understanding why you're doing this. And I feel that from the university going through to the practical, because I am employed and I am working in the construction industry as well while studying my honours. And I just feel like the university didn't completely prepare us for what we're actually doing when we get to the industry. I mean, you don't understand when you move from a university. You think it's basically no, I'm just going to do exactly what the university said I'm going to do. But it's definitely not like that. I mean, no one prepares you for what you're going to encounter once you hit the practical experience and actually working. They set you up for one aspect, and then you completely succumb by another one, something that you didn't expect, and you have to try and understand why you're doing this, and pretty much forget some of the theory they taught you, because it's completely, you have to start from scratch. So I just think we need to try and implement something that opens it up for your students still studying to just go out more often, even if it's not, keep them accountable when they go to site. Say, what did you learn today? Go to a site, understand what they did there, and learn from it. Instead of just saying, okay, no, we did see it, but not know why it's actually happening like that.
Thank you. I'd also like to link up with Ruben on the practical experience side. So at TICS, we've got 240 hours required to be completed before you're allowed to graduate with your honours degree in construction management. Now these hours can be built up by a combination of things, or perhaps you're on a big site and you've only seen excavations on site. You haven't seen site handover with completion, practical completion dates, any payment claims, because you're actually just busy with excavations and site clearance. So I'd feel like if we can split these 240 hours up more effectively over your years. In our first year, we focus on housing, second year on multiple story buildings, and our third year in ABTs, alternative building techniques. So if you can have certain objectives for our first year, maybe 120 hours in housing, and then you can complete your housing. Next year you've got 120 hours in multiple story buildings. So you've actually got, now you've got experience in housing. It eases you into the industry. Now you've got multiple story buildings. And our third year, maybe ABTs, where you can just complete your hours. And also another aspect of doing site visits. We did in Hatfield at TICS, we did site visits to different student housings. And it's very difficult to get permission from the construction managers actually to be allowed to visit your site. And when the construction manager actually gives you permission, they'll just send his site rep, his safety rep with you on the site. So the safety rep does not convey any knowledge with regards to construction management to you. They just ensure that you don't fall into excavations, you're aware of the risks on site. But if I visit a site, I actually want that knowledge to be conveyed to me. I want to see, why is the tower crane situated in the middle of the site? Why is the tower crane perhaps situated on the edge? Why are they doing stuff in a certain way? How are they doing the excavations? They're planning for where's their site officers on site. So I'd like to know why and not just see how. And that I think would be really appreciated from students if the construction managers can help us. And another thing is, sometimes we had discussions with previous students, that's construction managers on site, past students from the university, and they were more than willing to help us, actually, because they knew what the assignment was, and they knew they struggled to get permission on site. So we had one guy that was actually willing to help us because he knows of our struggles. Thank you very much.
Thanks. At the University of Joburg, I think in your second year, you go out and work in the industry. So the way the course is structured, you do building sites, and then on the second year you go out and work. So just to relate to my practical experience, I was working in a company called Munyai Construction. So I learned a lot in that 6 months. So I think it's important for industry players to make it important that students have extensive practical experience altogether. That 6 months alone, he was busy with a project in Hartbeespoort Sport, Cosmos Reach. He was building houses within that estate. So he really pushed me, even though he wasn't paying me, he was just paying me transport money. But for that 6 months alone, I thought I learned a lot in relation to understanding the industry itself, making myself ready for third year altogether. So as industry players, I think we should take that as an important element for all courses. I know now within the University of Joburg, they've transformed the qualification into your normal degree, BSc degree, but the other challenge is we shouldn't align ourselves in relation to making a same educational experience for everyone. I think the element of in-service training is very critical for courses like this or for industries like this, especially if you're looking into your mining industry and your building industry altogether. Apart from that, fast forward when I started working within the industry, I was in the DRC and also in Ghana for some time in the mining industry, where I was helping there as a junior quantity surveyor, even though there's no such a work right now. But what I learned at the time is the long hours that you work. I think also being disciplined is also part of the practical experience. You need to be disciplined, which is something that I also take forward into the young ones coming out. Being resilient to the pressure. Obviously, we're working with time, working with money and quality, so there will always be difficulties as well. So those are some of the key practical experience traits that I think are important for young graduates coming out. Obviously, there's technical aspects to it that are also important in terms of how do you do your own project plan, how do you quantify and so forth. And I think it's something that we should take forward into the next generations as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Clearly, from our panel, we can certainly agree that practical experience, the provision of it, how it's structured and how it works, is clearly not adequate. And perhaps as we get into the questions, one of the things we'll discuss is what can be done? What should the industry do, particularly because this issue has been discussed, I think, quite a lot. And over the years, there hasn't been really consensus from the industry on how can we successfully integrate the practical elements of construction management qualifications into the normal teaching and learning education. So thank you very much for that. And then now moving to the second point, which deals with, I think they've covered elements of teaching and learning, but in a nutshell, do you think the way construction management degrees or are taught are adequate? Do you think there should be different models? Most of the time, what typically happens, students go to class and the lecturer sits in front and they then tell students about what's going on and how things should be happening. So do you guys think the delivery model of construction management qualification is sufficient? In other countries like the US, there's a lot of focus on project-based learning, where really, more than anything, the way the course is delivered is more on practical aspects of the construction process. So it's those kind of things. So do you guys think it's maybe are they adequate? Are your lecturers teaching you the right things? Are you happy with your lecturer?
Well, currently, firstly, from that, we need to look at what's happening globally. For instance, if you look at Google, IBM, and Apple, Google, IBM, and Apple, they no longer look at degree as being the benchmark for employing students. Employing people, students, whatever the case may be. Instead, they look at your aptitude for the arithmetic and whether or not you understand coding, because that's where we're going to. We're going into the big data age. I mean, if you look at QS, for instance, the standard system has been the same probably before I was born, or maybe after. But nonetheless, so looking at such things, the QS profession on its own is threatened because everything is, I mean, our contractors don't need to employ QSs anymore. You just get those nice candy softwares and you win QSs and you learn this and that. I know a few heads are shaking here, but it is what it is. We need to actually change the learning system on its own. From when I was in grade 1, I was sitting down, listening to someone tell me what to do. And then at the end of the year, repeating what they said so that I get a mark to go to the next grade. You get to varsity, same system. Only then when you do your practical experiences, it's different. Yes, the knowledge is different, but the system is still the same. If we compare it to other countries, in China, for instance, a child that is 9 years old already knows how to build a motherboard or code a program and all of that. And we only wait until we're in varsity to actually start exploring these learning methods. Only in your postgrad do you now do your research, and by then you realize that's why perhaps in our country all our leaders are very old, like very old. So we need to actually allow the young people to start becoming leaders by first teaching them from a young age.
I think I'm going to go into a different direction as my panelist. What I think is at the University of Pretoria, we've got one subject that I think is extremely relevant. We call it construction management, and it only comes into your honours year. I think we do touch on it on our 3rd year, but I mean, it's the only subject that if I can think back, has the biggest impact in what I'm actually need to apply in the construction industry once I'm inside the experience. It's the only relevant information that was taught to us that really comes through that you need to know once you're in the industry. So I think that's one thing that could be, that we can just focus more on subjects that's actually more applicable to once you get into the practical times. Another thing that I think we're just skimming over, which is a shame that we're skimming over it, is construction contract law. I mean, in the industry, you can't get a job as a construction project manager anywhere if you don't have general basic knowledge about your construction contracts. We run through it, and I think in our first semester we've got one subject, and it basically focuses on the JBCC. But I mean, the depth of information that there is in the JBCC, you can't just skim through it in one semester. Second semester, we run through your GCC, your NEC, and your FIDIC. But you run through that, I mean, how can you fit all the information of 3 contracts into one semester, where it's also just your second half of the study theme? Your first half is basically litigation and just how these things in dispute resolution has been applied. But I just feel that if we want to change the courses and get students more applicable to, or get the studies more applicable to that you do in the practice, I think we need to focus on the contracts because it's a massive aspect of the practical work. I mean, you can't really work if you don't know what the contracts are about. And there's so many cases where you go to sites and the site agents, they don't know what stands in the contracts. They don't know how to interpret the clauses that come through the contracts, and then they get caught out by the principal agent or the architect or the client, and they don't know how to evaluate and go forth with this process because they just know what they applied. So obviously on the first time you start with it, you start learning, and then that's where your contract managers come in. They know the contracts, but why should it take so long for someone to know the contracts? I mean, surely you can open the courses, get more courses in to teach students about the contracts. It's just a massive thing for me. I just don't understand why it's left as such a small thing in your degree where it actually plays such a large role in the field. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to link up with the teaching and learning, sometimes I feel the program is a bit outdated. Just doing construction management, construction contract law, project management, but where subjects like BIM. In September with the university I was in Malaysia, and they are like 5 years ahead of South Africa with implementation of BIM. There's students using it, firms are actually using it, and if you look at a country like Singapore, they're also using BIM. They gained independence the same year as South Africa, but they're so far ahead. Why aren't we looking at implementing a BIM course at university? Because with contract laws, there's lots of discrepancies caused by the engineer working on his own program, the architect working on his own program. With BIM, you can integrate everything together. maybe the engineer drew his HVAC system where there's a wall on the architect's plans. So you can actually see where's the problem. You see a 3D model of what is actually going to happen before you're building it. In the UAE, they implemented BIM at a cost of $250,000 on a project. That BIM saved $2.5 million, 10 times more on that same project because of faults they detected actually before breaking ground. So I feel like if you can implement subjects like BIM, have exposure to that, and also get industry professionals to teach us some subjects. Our lecturers are perhaps 10 years out of the industry, and the industry has changed a lot over 10 years. I feel they're great academics, but we just need that little bit of flavor from the industry. Thank you.
Thanks. Just to expand on BIM, I think BIM in Switzerland is it's one of the requirements for tender deliverables as well, where you have to have BIM, or you should be using BIM to take on a particular project, which shows its importance in education and learning altogether. But based on my experience, I think visual teaching is also important. There was a lecture at one point who showed us a video of how to excavate. I think I was first year at the time. I got an understanding of how it works clearer than when I was reading the textbook itself and looking at how it is on paper. So those are some of the critical elements in learning. But also taking it further into the fourth industrial revolution, I think we should look around soft skills, as I'm sure the next speaker will note, and also align ourselves with digital skills and coding, as my panelist had said earlier. The reason for that is as you do note that some of your employees might be required to do certain tasks using these digital elements that we're actually encountering, including your robotics, artificial intelligence, and the likes. And within the University of Johannesburg, there's a certain division called Intelligent Systems, run by Prof. Babu Paul, where he's also aligning and engaging industry players from different spreads, where they teaching you as professionals how to train your employees to be digitally conscious. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Yes, I think obviously there is a proper conversation to be had around I think training, education itself, and as well as who's supposed to be doing training and who's supposed to be doing the education part of it, or are they even separate in any case? So thank you very much for those views. So I think to be fair, we'll take 3 questions. Oh, okay. We'll try and add on the points that we have because of the time. The points that are remaining on the agenda, we'll talk about graduate employability and student organization. Maybe sort of get your views on what do you think some of the issues around graduate employability. Are you guys finding jobs? Do employers find the skills that you guys have adequate, or are they not? And as well, maybe also highlight on the role that student organizations, if they exist in your universities, have played in your overall university experience.
Okay, firstly, let's analyze the industry at this point in time. The industry big giants are falling, and with the fall of these big guys like your Liviero and NMC have been liquidated. We're seeing ASO and Basil Reed's trying business rescue here and there. When Basil Reed alone, its share price fluctuates between 0 and 20 cents, which is quite terrible. And I mean, there's the likes of Aveng and Group 5. We don't know their future in this country in the next coming 10 years. And with that, the problem now becomes, because now these guys are the biggest funders of bursaries and Also, because they provide the necessary training in terms of in-service, these guys help universities a lot. If they fall, then what then becomes of, firstly, those that do have jobs are already working in these sectors, and also the students who depend on these companies to fund these studies. It becomes a great challenge of which we need to actually, the national planning guys must do something. And also we're seeing the fact that the Chinese, industries are coming in and they're investing a whole lot of money. The mandate as to how they're going to assist us is not quite clear, and there's a whole lot of uncertainties for a lot of students at this current point in time. And in terms of support from the universities to the students, as far as organizations go, I know what UJ, in 2011, we founded the Building Science Forum. That was because at the time we realized that there was no conversation actually that's taking place between the students and the department and the industry to assist the students to get training or for there to be seminars or to be any open discussions about anything. You were just practically going to school, go in class, write your test and then leave. And you find that there's no track record of the alumni, there's no connections, there's no networks that are being built. Yes, at the time, the SACP, CMPs existed, and the ASA, QSs, and all of these acronyms, they existed. But they were not actually helping the students. When you were a student, you were alone until you get into the industry. And even getting into the industry, there was a whole lot of uncertainty as to what are you going to do, who are you going to depend on. You were basically on your own. So luckily, when we start luckily at this point in time, most students that are coming into to these universities find that there's a lot of support structures. I mean, from VERTS, there was the Novus Charter, now there's CMF and AC, acronyms. So basically, there's a lot of support at this point in time, but there's still a lot of uncertainty because yes, we might get support from an academic perspective, but going forward, what's happening to the industry?
Just quickly, because we also need to take questions, so you can sort of round up as well, and then we'll then take.
Okay, so another time is short, just to help my committee members, ACP.
Wonderful.
Just running through the last topics, I think the one is bursary and funding. I'm not too sure about the bursaries. I'm not sure. I don't think there's too many out there available for construction managers. I do know in my honours I'm funding my own studies while I'm working, so that's my opinion. Graduate employability is basically that, like I said earlier, it's difficult because we're not 100% prepared for the built environment. We're not physically capable of just stepping in and taking a role. We have to learn from scratch. So I think we just need to find an association or something that the businesses, the companies can work together with the students. I learned from an early age that you don't need to get paid. Experience is payment enough. In my first and second year, I went through my holidays and I worked on site. I was there, being the happy, running around, doing all the small things. But I got experience. I learned some information that the universities didn't teach me. I wasn't paid for that. It's not necessarily to get paid for something. The experience is reward enough. And if you look, there are students out there that are willing to work for free because the day they leave the university, they can say, no, I've got experience here, I've got experience here, I've got experience here. And that is much more worth than a few rand in the pocket for a week or two. So I think the graduate employability is we just needed to try and work on that level. Career guidance, not many people know about construction management. In my personal opinion, most people, I would say, don't know. It gets shadowed a bit by quantity surveying because we are the same course in most instances. It splits up, I think, on third year in most universities. But no one really knows about construction management. They know about quantity surveying. So I think we need to go to high schools and literally have a quick discussion, like a forum, a board, where we just sit and answer questions and let the student or the high school students know what they're in for and that this course actually does exist. And then, yes, at the University of Pretoria, there are actually no student organizations. Me and Harani did have this discussion last week at the ACPM, and we're actually trying to look to implement one at the University of Pretoria. Thank you.
All right, we'll now take questions, particularly because I think it's it's UJ and UP, so I think you've covered your colleagues in a sense. So I'll now take questions or comments, but if possible, if you can keep them very brief so that just straight to the point and be able to articulate what it is. So I'll take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. For now, I'll keep it at 6 there at the top, and then it'll go this way.
Chair, thank you. Professor Smallwood, Professor of Construction Management, Nelson Mandela University. I'm probably the only academic here. I'm not sure if there are any other built environment academics present. Hands up. There you go. Right, now you know what you're in for. First and foremost, these hybrid programs, University of Pretoria, WITS, UCT, that's a problem. The quantity surveying profession, that was part of their plan, to kill the construction management discipline. I'm the past president of the South African Institute of Building, or one of them. So I would know, I was there at the time. So the first thing we need to do is, as the MEC said last night, we must stop talking, we're discussing the same issues year in, year out. You cannot have a hybrid program at undergraduate level because that in itself marginalizes the discipline, profession and practice of construction management and construction project management. The Deputy President of the SACP-CMP sitting here is speaking next. We both served on the Construction Management Development Committee. We finally produced a DVD to promote the discipline, profession and practice of construction management. But when you as a student tell me that you don't have a student organization, then I have a problem with you. Because then I know you cannot get the job done. You cannot mobilize as a student and a group of students to even establish a student society. We've had a construction management student society at our university for decades. They organize the functions that enable students to interface with industry and prospective employers. So please, don't create shopping lists as South Africans do. Actually solve the problem. Because let me just also caution you, everyone discusses Industry 4 and BIM. At the end of the day, someone has to lay that brick. And that brick and cement mortar has to be positioned next to the brick layer. And there's no app to do that. And you cannot Google that. Do not be naive. The Chinese intend to colonize South Africa. And they're not interested in graduate development. You can cite me in the media in the Sunday Times. Do not be naive as the woman working in a condom factory thinking she's making sleeping bags for rats. Okay, now you got it from Professor Smith. The next point, there may be a political agenda in terms of the Big Five or whatever, but you correctly appointed because the people that want to get rid of them are not going to look after your health and well-being as a student and as a graduate in training. You can cite that in the Sunday Times as well. So it's a huge problem. And Bob Hindle authored an article just recently, Bonke was it, were they pushed or whatever. You can Google that, you love Google. So read the article. With respect to programs, you need to be very careful when you cite your personal experiences because your personal experience may not be representative of the status quo in tertiary construction management education. For example, at Nelson Mandela University, we're the only university with a separate CM and separate QS program from first to fourth year. You cannot create a construction manager in 1 year. So I have a big problem with UCT, BITS, and Pretoria, and I won't use the adjectives I use relative to those universities. Some people are aware of it. But we have construction management 3 in our undergrad program, and with the curriculation we've introduced construction management 2, because the students said what you said. Sorry, I'm pointing out that they need to be exposed to construction management too. But you also need to consider, when you are critical, that these programs haven't been sucked out of people's stomachs. They've been carefully crafted over decades by people such as myself who work for big general contractors, by people such as myself who have conducted extensive research relative to the practice of construction management. So we actually have a much better idea of what you have to do out there than you have. And in fact, remember, we are not the people that are undertaking the rework and killing people out there. So I can also be arrogant and say, I stopped doing what the people out there are still trying to learn how to do. Just a little thought, a little pebble in everyone's pond. Thank you. I had a big wah-wah now.
Right. Vice President.
Good morning, colleagues. Ronnie, thank you as the moderator for this session of day 2 and to your panelists. Mine is just a suggestion, perhaps, and I'm not saying it's the silver bullet, but clearly there's a gap that needs to be bridged between expectations of graduates and employers. And I'll cite example, now that Vet or somebody mentioned it, I'm reminded of this. The industry advisory boards. I know that at UCT, because I happen to live in Cape Town, so it's close to me, and UCT has an industry advisory board. And actually, now that I think about it, you at UP, I also sit on that industry advisory board. But the difference is that UCT, or rather at UCT, students at, I don't know, 3rd or 4th year level honors are actually part of it. And MBA Western Cape is part of it. So it's quite representative. And perhaps that's something to consider, especially where it's already existing. And I know Vets has approached me, Pride, Lofu, and David. So perhaps those are things perhaps we should consider. Prof talks about mobilization and all that, something like that, so that you remember that slogan in the 80s, nothing for us without us. So you need to be in those structures. That's my suggestion. Debate is there. Just approach your HOD. It's a lady, Prof.
Zoom.
Yes. We chat with her, and perhaps I think as a start, as an outcome of this conversation at this conference, I know it exists, I'm part of it, but I don't remember seeing students, and yet UCT has it, and it's thinking of the same thing.
Unfortunately, thank you very much, sir. Unfortunately, the program director has indicated that we're actually out of time. But I know there were questions, and hopefully some of the forums will be able to go extensively into these issues and look into what happens. But more importantly, thank you very much to our panelists for sharing their insights or their own views on what are some of the issues they're facing, and as well,
mine is a quick one, and it's just a contribution to the tech contribution that the panelists submit, and I speak in reference of the BIMs, right? And I think it's quite an interesting conversation that it's an interesting angle. In these conferences we speak to professionals, born professionals, and then we have students here who are tech savvy, and they have these brilliant ideas that when I look at how government does business, in the construction space, they're the biggest employer, well-client, and they are also notorious for requesting for discounts and all. And coming in the aspect of coordination, it's a very expensive affair. And I think with these BIMs, it would cut down a lot on costs, and it resonates with how government wants to do things. And I believe it would be some kind of like a once-off cost. You install the system, and you can have consultants operate from wherever, whenever. And it's also part of how they would manage their risk to ensure that they're getting quality and thoroughly coordinated building, which then, of course, would speak to what the minister said yesterday. You can't have 1-year projects, still lagging out, 7 years later because there's been major oversight. Coordination was never done properly. And when you put people down to the corner, they say, no, but, you cried for discounts, so, we cut down on coordination. Okay, of course, they're not going to say they cut down on coordination, but that's usually what happens. Again. So, if Butcher, I can only say Butcher here, I don't know who else is here from government, but I think it would be something, interesting for them to look into in the near future, and not just let these things slide away.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. I think that should be the last hand. 5 minutes more. Okay, the program director has been very gracious. She gave us 5 more minutes. So I think I can take the hand with the purple. And okay, so starting with you, sir.
Thank you. I'd just like to it's actually a comment, not really a question. In terms of job opportunities for young professionals, candidates coming out of varsity. I think everybody knows that National Public Works drives the young professional program and the intern program. Intern program runs over a year where we're bringing in young professionals coming out of varsity to drive towards professional registration. And the same with the young professional, where you're coming out and we drive them for a 3-year process to register as professionals. So to say that there's no opportunities out there is actually, you actually got eye flaps. You're not opening the box. Because I think, if I might, how many of the candidates here are interns and young professionals with public works at the moment? Just raise your hand. I know there's a couple of you guys at the back. So those programs are available. And I urge the varsities to make the use of it. Because what we are trying to do as National Public Works, because we see that we do have a major crisis within the profession. We've got the older professions now. I'm young, I'm 21 years old. We've got those that are going out beyond retirement. We've got these that are coming in. But we've got a gap in the middle of professions. And we are trying to capacitate the industry and get you guys into the industry, whether it be making you ready for private sector or public sector, irrespective. So all I'm trying to say is make an opportunity of that is provided by government, the drive to capacitate the industry. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And moving up, I think right there. All right.
Thanks. I heard you, opening, you said the students are frustrated, they don't get employed by the business. I'm one of the employers, so I want just to answer that part. You said that the students are employed. The employers are more frustrated than you students are. Because to start with, you people, when you come from university, you think that you are highly qualified, you know everything, but reality, you know nothing. So as an employer, one of the employers, I employ right now of students. Students from University of Pretoria, VETS, and UCT. Those students, when they come, they look for a job, they'll tell you that, look, I'm from VETS, you must pay me 30,000 rands a month. For what? What do you bring in the child in the company? They said because I've got a paper from VETS or from University of Pretoria. So, you must understand the student that after getting that piece of paper from university, in reality you know nothing. You must come and work for 3 years. So from there, you can call yourself a quantity surveyor or whatever you're doing. But before that,
interesting one there. Yeah. Oh yeah, actually one of our panelists wants to respond to your very, very interesting comment.
Okay. I know you need a person with 3 years experience, but we need someone to give us that 3 years experience. That's what we do. Just that, yeah.
All right.
Sorry, I'm pretty sure that in the beginning we did say the fact is, yes, we're studying these fancy degrees, but when we walk into the practice, I did say we feel like we know nothing. We're starting from scratch, and I did say that in the beginning. Everything we're being taught isn't applicable to when we go to practice because we need to start again. So I did say that we know nothing, and I also did say you don't need to work. You don't need to earn money to gain experience. I'm one of those. I'm prepared to work for free if I get the experience.
Just to actually add on that, there's quite a lot of students who are actually willing to go to construction sites and be able to gain some experience and work for free. But one of the problems we have is the access. I think one of the panelists did mention that some of the contractors have issues around students accessing the site. I mean, at Wits, one of the things that we had to do for a good 3 years trying to engage the university is to say, there's a lot of construction work that happens around the university. At the very least, can't those students that are doing construction be put in some of the sites? And since then, that has happened, and students don't get paid, and they are getting some practical experience. So the expectation that I think I understand from the sir that just made a comment earlier that they are more frustrated than students. Yes, I understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, I think one of the things that the industry can benefit from picking up lessons from other sectors. For example, chartered accountancy have a very good way of absorbing their graduate into the professional space, and there hasn't been really a conversation around whether someone is more important than the other, but there's a consensus on how it's supposed to be done, and everyone agrees. And I think the industry could benefit from that, particularly as far as the integration between the integration between higher education and as well as an industry. So I think that was the last question or comment. I think so. Thank you very much for your insights, panelists, and also from the audience as well, who made comments, very, very good comments. We've also noted, who you actually noted. In conclusion, I think it's actually very, very, we're very thrilled by the fact that the SACPCMP gave, for the very first time, I think, in a while, in this conference, gave platform to students to be able to have this particular dialogue, but I'm sure it should be able to continue going forward. Thank you very much.